Welcome to Living and Dying, the show that brings you news and information about the people and activities of Brattleboro Area Hospice. Today we're talking about a particular kind of volunteering through Brattleboro Area Hospice called vigil volunteering. And these are special moments during the last period of a person's life when volunteers come in to spend special time with that family, with that individual. And the folks that we're talking to today have all had quite a bit of experience in that realm. Joining me today is Mary Quinn and Cindy Hutcheson and Stewart McDermet. Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome.
So hospice volunteering takes many forms, and all three of you have done a variety of volunteering. And I think what might help us start to talk about this topic is to learn what brought you into hospice in the first place and how you gravitated into this particular type of work. Stewart, could we start with you?
Sure. I have been a hospice volunteer for over 25 years, I guess. And what brought me here was I just liked helping people. No matter what the situation was, being with people and listening. And so I enjoyed being around when someone especially was in great need, and not a lot of people are comfortable with death and dying. And I very much am. And so I knew this was something that I would enjoy really doing, is participating with people. And I've done a lot of things with Brattleboro Area Hospice over the years, being a regular volunteer and a vigil volunteer and a bereavement volunteer, and also work with the hospice thrift shop, trucking, bringing things and doing odd jobs around there. So it's an organization that I very much enjoy being with. It has like-minded people who think a lot about caring and giving, sharing, listening, working with people. I like being around people who are very caring, loving kind of people. I find it stimulating, and I must say I find it fun, enjoyable. So that in a nutshell is why I happen to be where I am now.
Mm-hmm. And Cindy, how about you?
I came to hospice, I lost my mother, and all of a sudden, and for months and months and months, it was my postal person who said to me, you should really go to hospice. They can, help you out. And I said, no, I don't.
But this is the person delivering your mail.
I don't need it. And when I finally did go, I took the course, and I found her and said, that was the best advice you ever gave me. Hospice has changed my life. And so not only did I go in the time of need, but then felt the need to give back. And so I did the hospice trainings like Stewart and like Mary. And I was involved in a grief writing workshop. And I also did a small group on dealing with your grief with other members in the community who had lost loved ones. And I have a full-time hospice patient now, and I also like to do this vigil work. And when I graduated from my first class, they came around, and the volunteer coordinator came around and asked everybody, where would you like to go and what would you like to do? And so they described all the components, and when it was Bettina Berg at that time, and she said, well, there's this vigil work. And well, what is it? And so when she explained it, everybody in the group said, oh no, I don't want to do that. And I thought, well, I want to do that. And so that's why I signed on. I always felt like I didn't want to be alone when it was my time. And so I really felt like I didn't want anybody else to be alone. There was no need for it. And so that's what brought me to it. I think about that, and every time I go to sit with a person, I'm grateful that they're not alone.
And Mary, what about your course?
Well, first, a friend of mine had hospice volunteers, and she was a friend of mine because her boss was my boss was her husband, and so I became a volunteer, not as a hospice volunteer, but to help her with her garden, and got to know the hospice volunteers. And she died a week before my father, so I had two close people die, 2 people right away. So, but there was something really struck me about the hospice volunteers, because they were with the family and anyone who came in as much as they were with the hospice client, and I just felt drawn to it. So 2 years later, I took the training, and again, like Cindy, Ren was her last time doing it, Tina's first, and they asked the same question, and I said, well, I'd like to do both, and I was particularly interested in Vigil. I can't say that there was something inside of me that said, this is why I want to do it. It just felt right. To maybe having had 2 people close to me die, and having a feeling for that made me feel like I wanted to be with people too, and to help, to support them, and myself, knowing that the family needs support too. So.
Cindy, when you were just talking about during your own training when the different types of volunteering were described and vigil volunteering was described, and it was probably made clear that the vigil takes place near the end of the person's life, whereas a typical hospice volunteer may be with someone for 6 months or longer, but that the vigil is more focused toward the end of the life. And Stewart and Mary, as 2 of the people who work with volunteers to do this, I don't know what your titles are, but you help to run the program.
Coordinators. Schedule the volunteers.
What qualities do you look for then in a volunteer who is able to do this kind of thing? Or Cindy, you could speak to what you think your qualities are that permit you to be in that place at that time.
I have become a very good listener. I have come to look upon my client, the cues they may give me. One of the most important things that I learned in the training was that when I was sitting with someone, when I sit vigil, I sit very close to them, and because I want to hear them, and I want them to know that there's somebody near them, and I will come on and introduce myself and let them know what the weather's like outside, and that I'm going to be with them for a little while. But one of the most important things that I learned was that when you are sitting with them and their hands are out or exposed, that you never put your hand on top of them, that you always slip your hand underneath and let it be their idea whether or not they take your hand.
Or to move it aside.
And to me, that is so, I'm so moved by that. Being able to even have contact. Who knows how long this person's been here without a relative, or, obviously they're in a facility where they're getting taken care of, but to have that kind of contact. And I've come on board and relieved another volunteer, and we all have different ways of doing it. Some people will sit on the opposite side of the room, some people will sit far away. I like to let them know that I'm right there, so
And
I
be in
sit
touch.
up close. I rarely turn it down because I really enjoy it, and I happen to live in close proximity to the hospital, to Pine Heights, to Thompson House, so a lot of times I'll just walk over. I like them to know that they can call me, if there's Cindy, we need somebody tonight. Is it okay?
Well, almost by definition, does a vigil volunteer is with the client alone?
Well, yes,
Likely.
because the family can't be there, or for whatever reason, or that maybe there is no family around, and but it's important to stress that as the vigil volunteer, not only are we there for the person who's passing, but we find ourselves often there for the family, and that is a very important part too. because we find that often the family likes the vigil volunteer. We're unique individuals in a way. We're very comfortable in this setting, and we are very accessible. And as Cindy alluded to, a lot of times it's just listening and picking up cues from either the person who's passing, if they're able to move or say something, communicate in some way, but the family too, just listening and being aware, watching the family for facial and clues or what they're saying and so forth. Listening is very, very important. And so while we are there for the person who's passing, and we may be alone, yes, but often the family's around, and maybe they want us there because they want to take some time alone. They have to get away, and they don't want their loved one to be alone, which is very understandable. And so we're there with the loved one. I too, as Cindy has said, very much sit next to the person, and I introduce myself, and I'll at least make some contact at first. Hi, I'm Stewart. I'm going to be here with you for a while, and maybe I'll say again like the weather, or I live out in West Brattleboro and so forth, and just because you never know. We know that as just the regular volunteers and individual volunteers, you never know what is heard. And so I really want to stay very close, just as I would as if I was sitting with you now, communicating. And so there's a lot that goes on, not only with the volunteer, but with the family too. And we're very accessible. We're kind of special people in a way who are comfortable in this situation where a lot of people aren't.
Mary, you mentioned being there once, ostensibly to give the family time to get away, but you said that one of the family members remained behind and
He
really
actually
wanted to talk to you.
Yeah, well, his wife at that point couldn't speak, and many times, I'd say at least half the people I've been with, maybe more, they're not able to speak anymore. So I'm either sitting quietly, again, like Cindy and Stewart said, I always introduce myself and tell them that I'm there, for them if they need anything. Sometimes it's a listening in another kind of way too. It's like just being with someone and seeing that there's something not quite right. So you'll go, if they're in a facility, you'll go and get the nurse and say, there's something not quite right. And usually they'll know what's going on. So you're there in all kinds of capacities. But I think your heart has to be there. So if your heart's not able to be there, I think the people you were asking, how do you choose hospice volunteers? I mean, the vigil volunteers. We actually don't do the choosing. The hospice care coordinators do, and everyone has been interviewed as to whether they would like to do that or not before we even get involved. So we have a list of people who we call.
I think it's important to note that none of us as volunteers are there in a medical capacity.
Right.
So that even though you noticed something was going on, it wasn't yours to do anything about, except notify someone who was able to do that.
Right. Every once in a while, we give in little things like you can wet their lips or something, but we don't give actual physical care. But we do in the sense of like if we see somebody seems cold, we'll move their blankets or something like that. But when we're just support comes in all kinds of ways, and I think it comes in nonverbal ways. And I wouldn't even want to go into any other realms, but I sort of have a sense that it comes somehow viscerally from one person to another. I mean, just like you're sitting next to somebody on a train, there is some kind of communication going on, whether you realize it or not.
What do you mean you don't want to go into other realms? I think you're going into another realm right now.
It's
I'm not challenging it.
I
think
don't
you're
know.
absolutely right.
Well, I don't have the words. That's why I can't say what
Those
it
are
is.
pretty good ones. Something happens.
But something happens, and
Just by nature of your presence.
I mean, when somebody's going to be supportive of you and not, and I think that still happens. My personal physician, he was with a family member, as my family member was dying, he said the last thing to go is hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we've also heard that in hospice training. And I was once with a hospice client who I was told was in a coma and was not responsive anymore. But somebody came in who he knew, and she got right in his face and said something to him, and it was just like, oh, no, he was actually there all the time, and he could hear everything that was going on. He just wasn't able to respond. But he could respond to her, and she knew how to ask him for responses. So that's one of the reasons we also say, that we're there, and try and really be present for the time we're there, too.
There's a challenge too, isn't there? I mean, to get somewhere, you've gotten in your car, you've driven there, your own shopping list is on your mind, and I know we talk about pausing outside the door, whatever the volunteering situation is that we're going to be encountering. Is there something extra you do? Is there something special you do for a vigil in that moment outside the door?
I think everybody has their own way of preparing. I think there really is something that is intangible that moves within me, for example. And I do think that there is some sort of communication, if you will, for the lack of a better word. And you this happens even in your daily life. If you talk to somebody and you're looking in their eyes and so forth, you can see if there's something happening. As a kid, you knew it with maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend. Suddenly, whoa, and this is something happens.
This is different, right?
This is different.
Wow. Something intangible moves inside.
Something intangible moves. And as you grow into adulthood and so forth, and I think as you grow, you realize something is being communicated. And so and I find this very rewarding. I find it rewarding to be a vigil volunteer and to have this experience, not only with the person who's passing, but also with the family, or maybe a staff member and so forth that comes in there. And I find this very, very rewarding, fulfilling, satisfying. And so outside the room, or on my way there, I remind myself, okay, you're going to be there with people and this person, and you don't know them, but this is a chance for you to grow and to learn. Maybe you don't know the person at all in the family, but here is a chance, Stewart. Boy, take advantage of it and make the most of it. Do what you can, which is mainly, for me, it's just listening and being aware.
Cindy, does that phrase, something intangible moves, ring a bell with you?
Yes, well, it's interesting listening to Stewart. I know I always pause before I go in, and Mary and Stewart will tell you things like, yes, they are responsive, no, they are not, today they were agitated. But one of the things that I was thinking about before I came here was that even though their life is closing, so many times I've gone into vigil situations where you really get a snapshot of the person. All of their mementos are there, they've got photographs, they've got a dresser that's from their home. So I kind of take inventory and I get to know this person even before I've said hello. And while I'm there, I will look at their items and I will talk to them if they're able to hear. And geez, I love the paintings. Did you do those? They're so beautiful. And you really, when you go into their room, it's like their little life is right here. And it's for you to look at and to really take note of. And I find that fascinating when that's set up for me, because it makes me feel like I've gotten to know the person more. And there are moments when I have walked out of a hospice room and been very upset that I have to kind of, pause before I get in my car and drive home. Sometimes when you're with a particular client over a long period of time, I know Stewart and I have had so we all have had circumstances where it wasn't just 1 or 2 visits, it was a week, 3 weeks in your case.
A year.
Yeah.
Oh, well, not for vigil.
Not for
For vigil.
Yeah, right. For no. Yeah.
And so,
So you really get to know the person.
yeah.
And the
And
family.
their families.
Their families. Yeah.
And I feel so great when I come on and I'm relieving a family member. You see their whole demeanor change. Oh, Stewart's here. I know that my mother's going to be safe, or my brother's going to be safe. I feel like I can go out and, do the grocery shopping or just go for a walk. I'm not worried because I know that there's somebody there to sit with my loved one. That's huge. That gives me so much satisfaction to have them feel that way for a person they may or may not know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Mary, Cindy said it's that she had some information before going in, and it sounds like something this is you and Stewart provide to the volunteers in terms of the patient's condition, responsive or not. What
The
other sorts of
family-
information can
I'm
you
sorry.
pass? Do you pass along? In other words, what's the nitty-gritty of someone showing up? What do they need to know?
Well, we'll tell them the family members that are in close contact.
Mm-hmm.
They usually Ryan. It's Ryan or Cheryl will be telling us these things. Just what the disease they have at times. Sometimes it's not as so clear. So, some family members live far away. Some family members are coming in for the weekend, and whatever. We ask a lot of questions of Ryan and Cheryl. I actually wanted to add a little bit, though, to we feel a lot of gratitude for being able to do the work, but I have to say, many, many times people have thanked us also. And not even just the family member. One woman, I didn't know if she was aware or not, but I just put my hand, like you had talked about, underneath her hand. And her eyes open, she goes, "Oh, thank you." Like somebody's there.
Somebody's here.
And it was just like, that's why I'm here, to hold her hand. So for 2 hours we held hands. She went back in and out of sleep. But so we get as much information as we can, but you're always walking into unknowns, because we just don't know. We just don't know. Lots of times I'll stop and also ask the nurse on the floor if they're in a facility. Or if we're going to someone's home, I'll ask the person who's there taking care of them, how are things going today? How are you? What do you need? So those are the kind of things that we
And
do.
these are needs that are that tend to be fulfilled at night. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, no. It's any time that we're needed. And so we can have volunteers, what the family needs. But as Mary alluded to just now, it's we want to know how the person, the client, is doing, but frequently we ask the family member, "So how are you doing?" Because often the focus is on the person who's passing, but there's a lot going on within the family member, and I think the fact that we even ask them, "How are you doing? How are things going for you?" is important. There's a lot going on with those people, as you know, and so to do that gives them an opportunity to say something, to express a little something, and they express something to somebody who cares, who wants to know. I'm concerned about your welfare. How are you doing? This is really difficult, isn't it?
Was it surprising to you to think that you started this by saying you wanted to help? And normally we think of helping someone as some kind of heavy lifting. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to do some work here, and it's all going to be better because of what I'm going to do. And yet, it sounds like the major portion of the gift is your presence and your compassion and your questions, your simple questions. How are you doing?
That's
Isn't it
right.
surprising?
Is it surprising?
Doesn't it seem surprising?
That's so.
Or do we have it so wrong so much of the time, thinking we have to do the heavy lifting? There's almost nothing to do except be there, which is a challenge in itself.
It's for many people, the heavy lifting is much easier, I think, and so great. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Good. You do the heavy lifting and all, and I'll do it too. But this is something that I do. I enjoy. It's not a surprise for me. It's what I do. Other people do their lifting and their carrying in other ways, you know. And a lot of times, taking the hospice training, people have just taken that training to enrich and their own lives, to help themselves. And they may not be a volunteer, or they may choose to do other various kinds of hospice work, volunteering, not maybe client care, but other things too. And I don't think it's.
No, Mary, doesn't it seem that if there's any heavy lifting to do, it's almost the work we have to do inside to heavy lift that expectation out of ourselves that we have to do something big.
That we have to do something big, and that we have to do something special, or be special, or say words exactly right. I mean, that one dropped away real fast, because like you feel like, okay, I'm the hospice volunteer, I'm the one who knows. Well, no, we're people who've gone through hospice training, and we did it because we care and we want to help people, and we try and be as present as we can to be able to do that. And with time grows comfort. Stewart's been a volunteer for 20-something years. I guess I've been doing it for around 8 or so years. And, I'm not sure with you, Cindy, but
It's probably about the same amount of time.
but someone coming in for the first time, that may come to them right away. So it's really not about the number of years. So it's becoming comfortable with a very human, frequent situation. That is very, very powerful moment in people's lives, whether they are the people who are dying or the people who are left, after the person's died. One of the things we also are trained in is to not put that artificial line of client, then there's a line, and then living people. No, we're all in a process. So that was something, when that was mentioned, was very, very, that helped me a lot in terms of not trying to make a separation between myself and others.
Cindy, early on you had mentioned that in your hospice training, when vigil volunteering was described, a lot of people were saying, no, that's not for me. That may capture what many of us feel about being with someone as they die. And I wonder if, in the last little bit of time that we have here, if any of you have some words for those who don't feel comfortable right now about that, or volunteers who could step into that role. What needs to change? What did you find yourself, or what have you felt changing, or what have you seen others go through to be able to do this?
I guess for me, it's just not to be afraid. It's so natural and normal. My family was really worried because I tend to be emotional, and they thought that they didn't know if I would be able to handle it. But I find it very calming. I go in and it just seems so natural. My children have asked me, Mom, what happens if the person dies while you're there? And I said, well, that's why I'm there, so that they're not alone. So they get that part. I find it very normal. I don't know. It's very rewarding. It's very natural for me to go in and sit. And I would just say to people that if you are comfortable in being in the silence of someone, that you should try it, and that it's not scary. I think we're all frightened of the unknown, and unless you've been there. I have never had, I'm going to say, the opportunity of someone passing while I've been in their presence. It's happened after I've left or the day later. But I know I will be fine with it when it happens. I'm not afraid of it happening.
Mary?
I think that they have to come to the conclusion themselves. They have to feel it here. And that's really not something you could say. I think you just know. And the opportunity is always presented. And so I think it just has to come from your heart. And I think that came from all of our hearts. Nobody, I didn't need to know exactly how I had to be when I went in there. There's just something that said and the dying process can be incredibly peaceful for some people and not for others. I've been there for both, but there still is something rewarding in being able to be there for them. And so we all have things to give, and we gravitate towards those. So I really don't think I would specifically feel like I would need to tell somebody what what you've been asking. Yeah. I think you just know.
I would agree with that we are each our own individuals, and I think people have to continue on as they feel most comfortable. And if individuals feel they would benefit from talking to people like us who have been in this activity, then that'd be great to talk to people. But people have to just follow their own desire, their own being, intuition, whatever the proper word is. And as Mary alluded to, you help in your own way. They may not want to be right there in the presence at that time, but they may want to help afterwards, or carrying being with the mother and father if their child died, or being with the loved ones. They may want to do their own thing. And so just be comfortable and be aware you're doing all right. You're doing your thing. You're doing great. Keep at it.
Well, thanks for coming in today, Mary, Cindy, Stewart. And thank you for joining us today with Living and Dying about Brattleboro Area Hospice. And you can find more information at brattleborohospice.org or by calling 257-0775. Thank you very much for being with us today.